Today on the two-car garage, we start planning out the wiring scheme for Curts bug. Well, all right, well, here we go. Let's dig into some electrical here. Now I know we have a lot of work to do before we actually get to needing the electrical. But since we're waiting on a whole bunch of parts, I figured now would be a good time to at least get things sorted and kind of organized and really figure out what it is we're trying to do here. So what we have is I picked up an aftermarket harness here. This is a kind of a hot rod harness. I used the exact same one in my 55 Chevy, so I know that the quality is going to be pretty good. It's not a expensive, painless harness, which would have cost us $500 and some dollars. This is much more affordable than that. In fact, I'll just go ahead and throw a link down in the description if you're looking for something. The harness is really laid out pretty well here. We've got a fuse panel that's going to have all of the accessories we're going to need and then some. We don't need everything that's on here, but there are some things I figured would be easier to have a big fuse block. The power windows that we're adding, the door locks, the radio has one for constant power to keep the presets and clock in check, and then the actual power for the radio. Now this is meant for a front engine type vehicle, so the harness is a little bit short in the engine management side. I'm not totally worried. I think we can make this work. Worst case scenario, I'll have to do some splicing, but the rest of the harness is going to be more than long enough. Now I'm just going to get some of this out of the way, and really what I want to do right now is I want to go through and reorganize this setup here. There's a lot of wires in here that we're not going to be using. For example, here's one for the fuel gauge. This has a mechanical fuel gauge, so that can go. The electric fuel pump can go. Some of the other accessory wires can be eliminated. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to cut all these zip ties, get these all separated, and then I'm going to start to regroup them since we're running things a little bit differently than this is intended, and I will have the groups kind of laid out at least as close as I can get it for the moment, and then we can kind of figure out how we're going to lay it in the car. Now I can go through each individual bundle here and figure out what I'm not using so I can pull those out. One of the cool things about getting an aftermarket harness like this is each wire is actually labeled. For instance, this one says fuel gauge, and every couple inches they've got that printed, so that allows me to go ahead and find all these wires and track them to the end of their looms and just go ahead and pull those out. So we'll start with this one since it's right here. And there we go. So there's our first wire removed. Now I'm just going to go through and find all the other ones I don't need. I'll get those pulled out, and then I'll bring you back once we've got that done. So we've got our bundles kind of sorted out here, and we've removed this from the bundles. We still have to remove this from the fuse block, but basically just to kind of give you an idea of what we've done here. This is for the fuel gauge, which again we're not using because it's mechanical. We've got this black wire for the air conditioning, which we're not running. Those are the wires that we've been eliminating here. Now these that go direct to the fuse block. So we've got the fuel pump wire right here. So that actually comes in and plugs into this guy right here. So to get these wires pulled out, once we've got the fuse removed, there's just a couple of little tangs on the connector here, and we just have to depress those two little tangs, and then this will slide right out. So let me bring you up close so you can kind of see what's going on there. All right, so up close here, if I wiggle this set of wires that we're trying to remove right now, you can see right down in this block is where the connector is, and right now it just won't pull out. So what we're going to do is we depress the two little tangs. I have this tool. Picked up this set from Amazon. It helps to disassemble all these different types of connectors. I'll throw a link for this in the description as well, in case you're interested. So now what we'll do is, there's actually two tangs, one on either side, that need to be depressed. But I found that if you reach in and push on the first one, it'll actually kind of bend that tab out of the way. And then I can reach down here in the second one, and that slides this guy right out. So now if you take a look at this, you can see these are the two little tangs that hold it in. And if I want to reinsert this, all I got to do is bend these guys back out. And then when I slide this back in, it'll snap in just like new. So now we're just going to go ahead and repeat that for the remaining wires here, and then we can move on to the next step. And there we have it. So now we've had all of these accessories removed from the block, and we were able to do it without cutting anything. And that's important because, again, we might need to slip some of these back in if we decide to use any of this stuff. So now nothing's been damaged and is ready to go back together. So now I can just take this bundle, we'll wrap this up neatly, set it with the other ones. All right, so we've got our wire harness kind of cleaned out here of all the things that we think we're going to need to eliminate here. So that's, again, this pile here. So I'm just going to set that off to the side. These fuses we'll set off to the side because we don't need those right now. The next step for us is to go through and resort these bundles. Remember, this harness is built for a front engine car, and so the bundles are put together that way. So like everything that would run the power to the motor is bundled together with like the headlights and the front turn signals and all that. I need to take the engine management wires and I need to run those with the wires that run to the taillights. So we're going to reassess those bundles, and basically what we're going to do is we're going to split this up into 3 different groups here. When I'm trying to lay this out, I basically have what I call front, middle, back of the car. So front in this case will just be headlights, turn signals, parking lights, all that. Middle of the car is going to be anything that's going to be connected to the dashboard or the steering column. You've got here, for instance, you've got everything that goes to the directional switch. You've got the dimmer switch here. You've got ignition power. That is here. These two go to the ignition switch. So all of that's going to be what I consider the middle. And then in the rear would be tail lights, and in this case it'll be engine management. If it was a front engine car, then this would go with the front block. So now that we kind of have that in mind, it's really just a matter of resituating this stuff into those 3 chunks. are. So I went ahead and bundled everything up in the areas that I need to be separate. But here's what we've got. We've got the rear section that's got our taillights, it's got our engine management, and everything to make the car run there. This bundle here is our front, which is basically just the headlights, turn signals, and the parking lights. Then this section up here, it is just the middle section, but I went ahead and broke it up into some smaller bundles. I figured now would be an easier time to do it while I still had everything separate and organized. So what we've got for this middle bundle, or middle section I guess I should say, this bundle of wires right here includes the ignition switch, so that's what's going to power up the car, and then it's got our directional and high-low beam switch, so that's all kind of in the same area. This little bundle here is actually for the brake lights, so this will run down to the master cylinder where the brake light switch is. This bundle here is all of our actual accessories. The yellow wires are power for the power locks and the power windows. We've got the cigarette lighter or power port, and then we've got power for the radio, and then this last one is actually for the wiper motor. So this is our accessory bundle. This bundle here goes to the headlight switch, so that'll run all of our lighting, including it's got this wire that runs out that's going to run the dash to run the dash lights. And this final bundle is actually for our dashboard. So we've got our signal wires for the flashers, we've got the signal or the indicator wire for the high-low beam. We've got power, just to power up the gauges, as well as illumination. So this is kind of how we've got it laid out. When we do get to installing this in the vehicle, it should be a lot easier to kind of track down where we are. So as of right now, you've probably noticed I don't have a wiring diagram out here, and I'm not currently going to use a wiring diagram. I've wired enough vehicles up to this point that I've got a pretty good handle on where things need to go, how things are going to get wired up, but I will be putting together a schematic. I can't use a Volkswagen schematic because we're altering from that. I don't want to use a General Motors type schematic, even though this harness is based on a GM. So what we'll end up doing is, after I get everything routed, everything hooked up, I will actually make my own wiring diagram that goes with this car, and that will be included in the little instruction manual that I'm going to give Kurt when I return the car to him. So if anybody ever goes in and needs to do any diagnosing or repairs, there's a schematic that's laid out exactly the way I have it laid out. Well, I think that's where we're going to leave it here for today. I know it doesn't seem like we got a whole lot going on right now, but this is just work that needs to get done one way or another. And since I'm still waiting on other parts to come in, I figured now would be the best time just to get it out of the way. I know it seems like it was just a lot of busy work because, well, it was a lot of busy work. Even though we're not ready to install this in the car, the hour and a half it took to get to this point really is just something to keep us moving forward. We still have a lot of things we're waiting on, and I figured this would be a good thing to get out of the way and really just get us ready for when we get to that point. If you haven't done so at this point, and you wouldn't mind, if you could just hit that subscribe button. That really does help the channel out. If you hit the like button, that helps us out even more. And hit that notification bell, because there's going to be a lot more that's coming down the road here, and you want to be notified when that happens. But that's about all we have for today. I think this is a good part one of wiring. My guess is it'll probably be a couple of weeks before we get to part two, because we're just going to kind of sit on this. But when that happens, we'll definitely let you know. So thanks again for watching, and I'll see you around.